Hello and welcome to the most peaceful place where the fruiting plants and animals roam free. Thank you, thank you, thank you to all of them as they make this piece of haven very enjoyable for all. Thank you, thank you, thank you for coming to Peaceful Village.
Michael.
Okay, it looks like we are live. So I'm just going to put you on mute for a moment here. And I'm going to talk to you about this show basically that we are having here. It's Creating a Beautiful World radio webinar or show. And I'm Michael Lanfield. I'm an author, spiritual coach, and World Peace Dice facilitator. And this is a new app that I'm using, or new website. It's called StreamYard. So hopefully it's going to work very good. It's so far working very, very good. We have a special guest that's on my right here, Mango Wodzak. And before I get to him and introduce him, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what's happening, updates, things like that. So right now we're in a place called Puyo, and it's in Ecuador. It's in the province called Pastaso, Pastaso, I believe. Puyo, Puyo, and it's just beautiful here in Ecuador. We've been to a botanical garden, or more like it, ancestral kind of forest. It was really, really beautiful. Maybe 20-minute bus ride away, and I thought I wasn't going to make it on time, and I made it on time. So that was great. I feel like I am losing connection, so hopefully I won't lose connection because it says that I'm losing connection here, but hopefully I won't. Yeah, so other good news, what's happening is we're really looking for land to create Peaceful Village. What is Peaceful Village? A raw vegan community, a homesteading community in the heart of Ecuador. We're looking for land to build this. If you want to learn more about Peaceful Village and how to get involved with Peaceful Village, you can definitely do that by going to peaceful-village.com and learn all about that, how to join us. Yeah, we're going to get land this year and we're going to build a Peaceful Village. We also have just released Criando un Mundo Hermoso, which is creating a beautiful world in Spanish. So we have that out in Kindle version, in PDF version, in other ebook formats, and we're going to talk also about Mango's books and about Anarchy, because this is particularly about vegan anarchy and how we can get out of this society, why we want to get out of society, why we want to move into nature and live closer or in nature and grow all our own food and all this kind of thing. And he's going to talk to us more and more about his new book, Topsy Turvy World. And sorry for the noise, you guys, as I'm in the heart of the city, which really I don't enjoy being in the city, but at least we get a lot of cool fruits that we haven't eaten before. Right now, we just don't have much fruit varieties available to show you, but lot of good fruits that half of them I don't even know the names. I don't even remember the names, but some nutty, some sweet, some more sour, some vegetables as well. So anybody can be raw vegan or fruitarian. It's not a big issue, and we have to be yeah, motivated to like want to grow our food if we really don't like the industrial system with all the chemicals and monocropping and all that. Mango is going to show us anyways. So my latest book has been translated by my lovely soul path partner Aurora Ananda, and she took a lot of time to to help translate this book called Creating a Beautiful World, which was published last year as a Kindle ebook and soon as a paperback. Once the restrictions are off, I can start to work on that book and everything with problems with shipping and all that kind of thing, especially to Ecuador and with expensive shipping and so forth. Anyway, so that is the big news. If anybody wants to have updates or freebies, you can visit newsletter dot weareinterconnected.com to sign up for the newsletter. Don't forget that this podcast or webinar will be uploaded. I think it's uploaded directly to YouTube, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to be posting it to Facebook, hopefully, and to BitChute. So BitChute is an alternative to YouTube. It doesn't really censor as much content, and so it's yeah, that's where I'm going to have my alternative channel as well. So I don't want to keep rambling on because I know I can speak forever. But let's talk to Mango and see what's really happening with his with his work and what he's doing there in Australia. Let's talk to him there. First of all, he has beautiful, beautiful birds in the background. You want to tell us about the place that you live in? Hi, Mango.
Yeah,
First of
we're
all,
yeah. Hey, Michael, and hey, everybody else. Yeah, we're incredibly fortunate to be living on 2.5 acre property out in the middle of the bush. So at the moment, we've got a lot of birds around. What you can hear at the moment are rainbow lorikeets. They're in their gum trees. Um, Not sure quite what they're eating, but there's something up there that they're eating. They're either the gum nuts or maybe nectar from the flowers. Um, yeah, we incredibly blessed to be living where we are. So yeah, thank the universe for that. Um,
excellent. And we've done many, many interviews with Mango, so there's still lots to learn because he is like the pioneer of what he calls Eden fruitarianism. So before we get into the vegan anarchy, I want to talk to you about what is Eden fruitarianism and a little bit about why you're writing books and all about generally what your books are about.
Really, Eden Fruitarianism is basically a recognition that the world that we're living in is messed up on so many levels, and I mean we all know that veganism has been a huge kind of forward step on many ways. So um, Eden Fruitarianism is taking another step. It's like veganism. If you look at it, based on the fact of the world is as it is, uh, it's not enough. It's not enough to really create the change that I think we all want to see. I mean, we all want world peace, don't we? And
Yes.
so Eden Fruitarianism is basically uh, outlining other ways in which we can improve on standard veganism by acknowledging for the fact that we don't need to cook food, we don't need to eat a lot of the things that we do eat as vegans is not good for the environment. It's not good for wildlife. I'm thinking especially of things like uh, grain cereal products that are grown. Not only most of them, of course, are grown to feed animals, but a lot of them are being eaten by vegans as well. And no matter how you look at it, this kind of food production is destructive on so many levels. So it's one
Right.
thing that
So what's the
vegans don't generally take into account. Sorry.
right, right. So people will ask, well, what is the difference between fruitarianism and Eden fruitarianism? Is there a big difference, or why have you coined that?
Um,
Like that's the main premises of your
yeah,
books, right?
it is, and the reason why I've coined a separate name is because I believe, and many people have pointed out to me that fruitarianism is really just a change in diet. I mean, if you get down to the nitty gritty of it, fruitarianism is about eating uh, a predominantly fruit based diet. But Eden fruitarianism is about acknowledging that the world that we're living in is just kind of messed up and completely topsy turvy to how it could or should be. So, Eden fruitarianism incites a lot more than simply changing one's diet. it's about changing one's lifestyle and recognizing there are so many other things apart from simply what we eat that are causing destruction on the planet. So it's really about really changing our mindset and changing our consumer habits on more levels than simply what we eat and what we put in the shopping trolley.
Right. So what would that equate to as food wise, for example? Like what would people eat
Well,
usually?
food wise, which is obviously a huge focus of the whole concept. Food wise, we would be focusing on more on buying local products, local fruit specifically, and organic if possible, if and when possible, which is not at all easy in the modern world because, well, oftentimes organic fruit is just too expensive and unaffordable for many people. But the idea is to do the best that we can, buy local fruit whenever we can do. And if the variety of fruit that we require is not there, then make any effort, serious effort really, to move to somewhere where it is available. Because we want to make our demands known. And in fact, the more people there are that are making our demands known for fruit, the more um, this supply will be made available to people. Supply and demand, basically.
So basically, Eden fruitarianism goes, it's like an extension of the ethics of veganism, where we don't harm, of course, non-human animals, and
Yeah.
where we also respect plants. So fruits are
Yes.
the least harmful of all plants. But what
Yeah.
about in areas that you cannot plant fruits, for example? How can people survive as a fruitarian or Eden fruitarian?
Uh, Look, there are places that people would argue that they can't even eat a vegan diet, and in much the same way, if somebody wakes up in an environment where they're an Inuit and all they've got to eat is seal blubber and fish, then I think they have a moral duty to move from that environment, really, to move somewhere where they can live in sync with the way that they think and believe.
Right.
So obviously there are going to be environments where it's going to be extremely difficult. But if you've really got that insight that what you're doing is not right, then
Mhm.
make an effort to move away.
Yeah.
You don't have to live in the same spot all your life.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if we don't evolve, we dissolve. So we have to evolve, keep
Yeah,
evolving
nice one.
for
Yeah,
the better. And what I've
yeah.
learned actually today, when we went to it wasn't really even a botanical garden. It was like a whole, I don't know, nature reserve or something, where
Mm,
they're trying to protect the environment and everything with native species and non-native species and so forth. But what I was learning from the gentleman was basically that a lot of the indigenous people, and I don't know how long ago he was talking about, if that was 50 years ago or thousands and thousands of when they first, settled in the area. But basically, the people in the Amazonian rainforests in Ecuador at the time did not have much fruit to eat, so they would have to kill animals. He
mm,
said they would have to kill animals in order to survive. But of course, he himself, not being a vegan, has probably that mindset that it's not possible, or maybe people were always eating animals. So I don't know if that history is
mm.
correct or not, but it gets you thinking that, um, maybe this, I don't know, like that just got me thinking. So I don't know. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah.
About people living
Well,
thousands of years
I
ago.
think, yeah. I would question whether that's true or not. And obviously, as you say, the guy is coming from a point of view where he doesn't really understand the idea of eating fruit and doesn't recognize fruit to be the unique food that it is. But I mean,
Right.
I've read that the natives in the Amazon recognize over 2,000 species of fruit that are growing in the jungle. I mean, I don't, obviously, I can't vouch for that being true, but I would imagine there's a lot of fruit in the jungle, in the Amazon jungle, that we just don't know of because it's not
Yeah.
made commercially available to the West.
Yeah.
So I think that he's probably not. He's not. I wouldn't say he's not telling the truth because obviously he probably believes what he's saying, but it's not a reflection of reality what he's saying. I think that the fruit was there. But having said that, I do think that the Amazon is an extremely harsh environment to be living in. regardless of whether or not there's fruit there. I think there's so many biting insects and other animals that you kind of make the environment inhospitable in many ways for us smooth-skinned monkeys.
What about the idea that if we live in harmony, we try to, just eating fruit and really truly live the Eden fruitarian way, wouldn't
Yeah,
that wouldn't that like more or less protect us from harm because we're not doing as much harm as other people. So wouldn't that kind of, I mean, of course, we're not going to be invincible or anything, but I've noticed when I went
mm,
vegan, and then
yeah,
as soon as I started to eat more and more fruit and include that
yeah,
into my life, I noticed that less harm was coming to me. Even though, of course, I had a
yeah,
lot of challenges in my life, but less harm was coming to me. And I remember
yeah,
before I was vegan, a lot of problems. I had many problems with
yeah,
my life in various ways, a lot of challenges. Now the only challenge is how to get out of the system and avoid being being thrown
yeah,
in prison by governments and
yeah,
police for being
yeah,
sort of illegal. So how do
yeah.
we do that?
No,
And how do we get our
I
own
can really
land?
relate to. Yeah, I really relate to what you're saying. I mean, it's so true. I think I've certainly through my life, I'm in a position now where I have very little harm that's ever done to me, because maybe because of my lifestyle changes, but I don't think part of that reality is that I'm not putting myself in a situation where I'll be harmed anymore.
Right.
So I think if I went into the jungle, I know there are places down here on the coast where you just cannot. They're just like mosquitoes. They're so thick that
Mm.
you're going to be eat, eaten alive. Bitten all day
Yeah.
long. Even in the full sun out in the open, the mosquitoes are all over you.
Yeah.
So
I want.
I think. I do acknowledge that those places exist, but I just don't want to go there. That's the way I'm avoiding harm. But
Well, of
I
course.
don't
I
like to.
mean,
Yeah, I wouldn't go there and expect not to be harmed. I think that I would be very miserable living in an environment like that. But
right. Now, there are, of course, in Ecuador, there are many different climates. And most
yeah,
of the place is consisting of three different areas: the mountain area, the Pacific area, and then the kind of the jungle Amazonian area. And there's, of course, there's different climates and different sections of each of them.
yeah,
And I've noticed that some are less kind of wild, as you can call it, like less
mm,
private than others. Others are more like people can live there and people can grow food and all this kind of thing. I've been in
yeah, yeah,
two communities, three communities already in Ecuador. Um,
mm,
the first one was Food Haven. The second one is Terra Frutas, and then we went to also a place called Evolution Eco Village. Wonderful
mm,
places, wonderful
yeah,
people living there. And I recommend people going and checking out these places and seeing if it resonates with them, staying there long term. Just go
yeah,
out to nature and see, connect with nature. See if you can use, internet less and yeah, just be out with nature more and can reconnect with our true inner being.
for
And
sure.
but let's go on to the topic of anarchy because that's what your current book that you've released, a newest book called Topsy
Mm,
Turvy World. It's basically
yeah.
vegan anarchy. Can you explain what that is? Actually, what your interpretation of anarchy is?
Well, anarchy for me is a huge part of Eden fruitarianism. Unlike fruitarianism itself, which is basically a change in diet, Eden fruitarianism fully embraces anarchy because uh, the opposite of anarchy, which is having government and having authority over you and having somebody rule over you, is kind of like not the way the world should be. If we really want true peace, we have to have autonomy as sovereign human beings. So this is basically what anarchy is. It's not about any violence of any kind. It's just about reclaiming our sovereign birthrights, which have been stolen from us at birth.
Right.
So, yeah, understanding really that we're not free, that we're not free so long as somebody is telling us what we can do and where we should live, and that we have to even pay just to sleep.
So that, and I've read your book,
Yeah.
uh, and it's incredible. Um, I
Thank you.
don't know a book that really sums up everything about what's happening in this world that we're living in,
Yeah.
especially when people that are living in society we just don't really know what's happening because we're like this with blinders on,
Mm,
and we think what we're doing is normal, natural, necessary. We think what we're eating is normal, natural, necessary. We think what we're doing, we think every moment of our lives, we think the governments and society is there to protect us. Um, even though many people might think that, yeah, governments are corrupt in some way, but they think there's no way out. We just need to, continue paying taxes and continue living in the system where we're given all this stuff, the food in supermarkets, our water, and our energy needs. So
mm.
it's really sad. Can you give a little brief introduction about your new book
Yeah, actually, just to
and show the
show the
cover?
book
Yeah.
here, it's yeah, topsy turvy word. I don't know if you've noticed the
Wow.
picture on the front, Michael. Have you ever paid attention to that picture?
It's
Oh
like
no, you've
a
probably
like
never seen
a
it even. But if you turn it upside down, it's actually the right way around.
ah. I will actually
Anyway,
have to look at it.
yeah, yeah. So this is my latest creation, released at the end of last year. It also covers uh, a lot of what's going on in the world concerning the COVID pandemic.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it basically gives a rundown of the many ways in which the world is not as it should be. So I try to use something which I christen uncommon sense, and this is something that the reader is encouraged to embrace at the beginning, to kind of push aside everything that they think they know, that they believe that they know, because most of us do. Most of us come into this world and accept the way things are. They accept that well, governments are there. They accept the authority that's over them. They accept that they have to go to school. They accept that they have to fill out paperwork to do anything. They accept that they should fill out paperwork even when your child is born. The child must be registered. All of these things are kind of like considered as completely normal, when if you can really step
And
away from
necessary.
how
Yeah.
things are, they're unnecessary. Yeah, they're considered as normal, necessary, and natural in many ways.
Mm.
Uh, um, Much like carnism is considered normal, natural, and necessary by the masses, uh, cooking food is considered normal, natural, and necessary. And the whole way society is structured, as you say, there is some acknowledgement that there's corruption at higher levels, but mostly people don't think that the whole system is flawed, but rather if the system was tweaked in some way, it could be made right. But really, it's not right that anybody should tell you where you can live
Mm.
or how many children you can have, which is the case in some countries, or
Mm.
just whether or not uh, you're free to be vaccinated. In some countries, actually, now there's obligatory vaccination, not only for COVID but childhood vaccination. In Europe, I think France particularly, uh, if you have a child in France, then you must, uh, if you're following the law, vaccinate your child. And if you don't,
Wow.
you're a criminal, obviously, for not doing so. And I don't think it's the only country either. There are other countries doing so. It could well be the case that sooner or later forced vaccination may become a thing in many countries if things continue the way that they have been continuing. Yeah.
So your
So
book goes into
yeah,
all of that, and
yeah. Go
the
see.
whole yeah,
Carry on.
and the whole idea about your book is basically to get people to acknowledge all these things because in your beginning of your book you talk about diet and what appropriate food you should be actually eating. So you go
Yeah.
again, as your all your other books mention, we go into the
Yeah.
omnivorism, we go into the carnivore, the vegetarian, vegan, et cetera, until you get to
Yeah.
Eden fruitarianism, and then you talk about the vegan anarchy right there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so, ve- so just to summarize, vegan anarchy is basically uh, seeing other beings as um, as as the way we want to live, like free, basically, without
Yeah.
using them, without seeing them as property, without
Hmm.
shooting them, without seeing them as pests, just respecting
Hmm.
it as much as we possibly can to do the least harm on the earth.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
not call it
That.
Why not call it Eden fruitarianism anarchy, or vegan? Why instead of vegan?
Yeah, I
Have
kind
you
of
thought
mix my
about it?
terms a little, and for me, they're kind of synonymous. Vegan anarchy, but it's in it's a. I wanted to show because people don't generally understand that fruitarianism. If they haven't ever heard or read my books, they won't understand the full meaning of what Eden fruitarianism is. So
Right.
I want to address vegans to show vegans that there's more than that they could be doing that they can do in their lives. So that's why I use the term vegan anarchy to make it more kind of available or
Widely
more
accessible. Yeah.
understandable to
Yeah.
people. Um, yeah, because I
And
think,
then
as you say, it's about
yeah.
we do want obviously animals to have autonomy, and that's something which is fully recognised by the concept of veganism. We actually want animals to regain their sovereignty and to be once more let free to live. But what isn't acknowledged in veganism per se is that we also are oppressed, that we also are manipulated and controlled and steered in so many ways in our lives. So that's what the anarchy part of it comes into, is to actually understand, well, veganism is one thing, but there's so much more we can do. And
Mhm.
I do try. I mean, the one thing that I outline at the beginning of the book is nature's laws, which are part of
Right.
naturopathy. Um, I kind of put my own words to them, as it were. But the number one rule that we all break is to not eat our food as it's offered by nature, and to not have the understanding really of treating other life forms with the same kind of respect that we ourselves would like to be treated if we were in their shoes. And that not only includes animals, domesticated animals, but also wild animals, and also recognizing the sovereignty of a plant. That if we were to put our consciousness into a tree, we would not want for somebody to come along with a chainsaw and cut us down.
Right. I see. Well,
Yeah,
I want to tell a story, a short story
yeah,
before we continue, but definitely uh, the last part of your book, which is great, which is probably the best, is how do we solve all this? Where do we go from here? When we understand about anarchy, where do we go from here? And I got a question
yeah,
also about what about people still living in the city? Is it actually possible to create an Eden fruitarian world living in cities and towns? Or do we really need to get out into nature and start having small knit intentional homestead communities?
yes,
What do you think?
yeah. I absolutely. I don't think that city life is at all synonymous with Eden fruitarianism. It's not, because it requires mass food production for the people that are living in the city, and not done by those same people that are living in the city. So in other words, you've got land, vast tracts of land that can spread over kilometers of square kilometers, more even, of
Mhm.
people growing the wrong kinds of food to feed those people in the city. Plus, you've got all the things in the city that come with it: city life, the sewage waste, the pollution, the traffic, the concrete that's everywhere. That's kind of like suppressing nature in so many ways. So I do think that if you're to embrace the idea of Eden fruitarianism, one should do one's best to escape city. It's like
Yeah,
this a
and we're
sinking ship,
so
really. I think it's so
exactly, and we're
destructive.
so much relying on governments for everything for our food, for our
they
water,
do.
for our energy, like we
Yeah,
mentioned. And they want
yeah,
us in cities and towns because they can control us more. So they
yeah,
what they do a lot of times is um, they push a lot of the indigenous cultures into the cities, and now they
mm,
have to like fend for themselves on the streets somehow, doing whatever they
yeah,
can to make a living
yeah,
because now
mm,
they push their original homes.
yeah.
They push them into the cities, which is sad. But
That's
one
right.
story
And they
I
make
want to
them.
say, yeah,
No, because
go ahead.
they make those people dependent on the city too, because once they've embraced that life, once they kind of like get into it, it's very difficult for them to step back out again, even if they're given that freedom, because there's so many vices in city life, there's so many distractions that it's like it's easier for them. And I think Aboriginals here in Australia have acknowledged the fact that once the white man came along and started like mass giving supplying them with white flour and other things which obviously in my mind they never had any need for, but it was so much more convenient than having to go out and hunt for things or forage things for the things themselves. So they became dependent very quickly, and they were kind of like, well, I couldn't go back out there because it's just so easy. But
Mm,
life should be easy, but not in that way. We
yeah,
shouldn't be made to be dependent. Um,
yeah, exactly. And waking up when the sun comes up, sleeping when the sun goes down. But unfortunately, we don't do that. We have all these modern conveniences with the internet and
mm,
electricity. It's sad.
yeah,
But today we went to
yeah,
that botanical garden, and it was a lovely place.
yeah.
Even though, of course, unfortunately, the guy wasn't. People weren't vegan, but we promote veganism whenever chance we get. Aurora and I, and you said one story when you first bought the land. I don't know, so many decades ago. He basically there was like nothing on the land except for one tree, and
Mm,
he literally wanted to take care of this tree, wanted to revive this tree because the tree was dying. And eventually, I think it was some 12 or 15 years later when the tree fully regained all tree's health back. And what happened
mm,
was the gentleman was taking care of this tree over, almost 2 decades and more actually. Maybe I think maybe the tree is still alive. And at one point, he needed some flowers, and this tree only provided flowers. And by the way, I don't agree with picking flowers. I believe flowers should be left where they are. But in any case, he needed flowers for some event that he was doing, and he needed specifically for some day, But the tree only gave flowers during certain month of the year, and he was doing everything that he could, praying and meditating and loving the tree and giving the tree whatever tree needed. And so eventually, before that day that the event happened, that it took place, the tree provided him with the flowers, which was an idea
mm,
to try to understand that when we take care of nature, and nature provides us with abundance. You know,
mm.
so to
Absolutely,
take care
absolutely.
of all
Yeah,
the beings, everyone that's in the forest,
yeah,
to
yeah,
tread as lightly as we can in the forest, preferably walking
yeah.
barefoot, and
Absolutely.
yeah, just doing our best to do the least harm that we can,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then nature will provide you with all the abundance, whatever you need, all the fruits, all the
yeah,
things.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, let's talk a little bit
We
more
have.
about your book about vegan anarchy and how we can actually get to that world. Like what is happening? Okay, so first question is really
Yeah.
like what is happening in the world? People are so blind, they don't really know what's going
Mm.
on. Can you talk about
No.
the main problem that sorry, can you talk about the
Yeah,
main problem that your book focuses on?
yeah. Well, really, I think the world as it is being steered by a very mm, select group of people, a
Mhm.
minority group of people who have an awful lot of control, far too much control than we give credit for. Really, we don't understand. I think most people, if you start talking about this, they immediately think, "Oh, conspiracy." You know, it's a conspiracy, and that things aren't the way they are. But I honestly believe that the world is being steered by a group of people who do not care at all for our well-beings or the well-being of the planet, because all they're really focusing on is biggering their own fortunes and their own power that they have. So they think of us as nothing but really ants that they have no respect for. And we're all being used in a way which is not at all obvious if you until you start really putting your mind to what's going on in the world. You don't realize just how dark things actually are.
Yeah.
Um,
So what are
so,
some of the things, for example? What are
sorry.
some of the things, for example, the dark things like taxation? What like talk about the things
Well,
that are the
taxation,
problems.
the taxation, everything is about money, Michael. So taxation
Yeah.
really is all about really taking money from, because people think that the government is there in some ways to protect us. But the reality is that government is being steered by the same people that I've just mentioned. And that
Mhm.
the role of the government is not to protect us, but to exploit us. So we're all being exploited. We're like an exploited labor force. We think that we're free. We have this illusion of freedom that we live under. But everything that we do is all about using us, milking us. And it's a horrible term, but that's what's happening to us. We're all being milked. We're being exploited just from the moment that we're born. That we have to go to school, uh, and we spend 10 years of our life in a situation virtually every day, um, in a situation that we really don't, most of us don't like, we don't enjoy. And at the end of the 10 years, what they've accomplished is that they've made us all, um, they have tamed us all. They've tamed us all into accepting that things are the way they are, and there's nothing that we can do to change the way they are. So that's the whole point of school, really, not to learn anything, because most of us come. If I look back at the years that I wasted when I was at school, there was nothing really that I learnt that is any use to me at all throughout the rest of my life. You know, I before I started school, I was already reading and writing. I could do basic maths. Maybe I learned a bit more mathematics or computer science or something, but nothing helped me really. Nothing was of any use to me. It was really a bind. It was just a way to oppress my spirit, and kind of make me accept that this is normal. This is normal. And for most people, that's exactly what it is, normal. But the way that we have to change things is first and foremost, even though I've talked about this ruling elite that's out there, minority ruling elite who's steering the planet, it's very, very easy for us as individuals to put all the responsibility on them and say they're the ones that are causing the harm in the planet, environmental destruction. They're the ones that are steering it all. And by doing that, we remove any responsibility from ourselves. And that's precisely what I think we should not do. Even though there's people out there, yes, they're responsible for the role that they play, but we too, we have a huge responsibility in how we live our lives and what we choose to do or not do. So the very first thing that we should all begin to do is examine every way in which we spend money. Money in itself is something I think that eventually, when the world is fully returned to an Eden-like state, it won't be necessary. But at the moment, unfortunately, it's I don't really see a way how we. Well, I do see ways, but I'm maybe too cowardly to fully embrace them. But I think that it's yeah. While we're using money, we have to accept that we have a responsibility to use that money wisely and not squander it and not use it on things which ultimately cause destruction, cause injury to wildlife, cause other human beings to be exploited worse than we ourselves are maybe being exploited. So that's the first step. Really, is waking up to the reality of how things are, and the second step is to start making conscious, serious changes in our lifestyle habits, especially as consumers, more than anything else, really, as consumers. Even before we leave the cities, while we're in the cities, we can think, do I really need that coffee? Do I really need a chocolate bar, even if it's vegan? Because the chances are you've got no idea where that chocolate comes from. And the
Mm,
chances are very high that that chocolate is a produce of slave labor in some third world country somewhere.
it's in some way,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
Which is terrible. I mean, there's
it is.
I like. I mean, listen, Mango. It's sometimes so hard for people to wrap up their whole lives to what's
Yeah,
happening in the world today because the world is so vast.
yeah,
Um, Even though we are the world, we contain everything. And if we really think about it, we're all, as we are all interconnected. I'm
mm,
basically, I contain the universe, I contain everything within me. But at the same time, a lot of us don't really have that connection, don't feel that connection or have that connection, that
no,
interconnected, that understanding of interconnectedness of all life.
yeah,
And when they
yeah,
see the world, they see it as I'm here and this is the world and this is separate from me. Everybody's
yeah.
separate from me. All the animals are separate.
Very good
Government is
point.
separate, everything. So they're basically blaming and shaming and they
Yeah,
can't really see the whole picture. They cannot
mm,
make the connections because basically the majority of the population are not intelligent because intelligence
no,
is really the ability to make vital connections. And so, how can we
mm,
make vital connections when we are consuming the foods and consuming the products that are disconnecting us from our true spiritual nature?
mm, mm.
Suppressing all that within us, suppressing the love, the
Yeah,
compassion, the empathy,
it does.
nature,
That's very
everything.
true. It's very true.
And so when we talk
It's
to people about this, I mean, the topic is so vast because everything is included. The way we
yeah,
eat, what foods we buy, living in the city or living in a small village or out in nature somewhere, what we buy, other things that we support, government services that we support if we're living in a city or town. So all these things are so incredibly intertwined and
they are.
also don't forget that a lot of people have problems. They have financial issues. They have spousal, child issues with their work, in their jobs. They have health issues. They got all kinds of problems, and they're like, "Oh, I don't want to worry about veganism. I don't want to worry about animal suffering, because they got so much problems on their mind." So where do
Mm.
how do we like sum this up? How do we get people to wake up? How do we get this? How do we get back to the Eden world? What can people do?
It's a daunting task. It's not something which can ever really be achieved overnight. It's something that we have to do one person at a time. So there's no way that I can change the whole world, but I can change my own world, and I can influence other people by writing or by talking with them and explaining to them the way that I feel. And oftentimes it will fall onto deaf ears because people won't be ready for hearing it. As you said, that actually the more you like, once you become vegan, it makes you start to question things that are going on in the world more so than before you were vegan. So that's a kind of a step. It's like it's a mind clearing as you're going along. And I think that once you start eating raw food and stop cooking food, which is sludging your mind and it's clouding your thoughts, then you begin to see things more clearly. So you understand more what's going on there, and more than you did before you had made that step. And if once you start eating more fruit, I think it's even more so. You start to see things much more clearly than you have ever done before. So you understand, you kind of recognize that things aren't the way that you've always thought they are. Things aren't as you've been told. And the more that we're able to do that, the more we're able to change our own world, which is, I strongly believe, how come I've been so blessed in life to be living as we are living out in nature, beautiful garden, surrounded by wildlife, and not being eaten alive by insects. I think this is not something people will think, Mango, he's just so fortunate that he's in a situation where he can talk the way he does. But for the reality for most of us is that we have commitments, and as you say, health issues, family issues, all kinds of other things that are preventing them. But it's not like I've always been living here. I've been in situations too where I've had commitments. I've been tied down, but I
Yeah,
just made the conscious effort to break free, and I'm sure you have yourself. We've all been
yeah,
in
exactly.
situations, and
Exactly.
yeah,
We all have challenges.
we do.
Before I had more challenges. I had problems, tremendous problems with financial issues, tremendous problems
Yeah,
when I was living in the city full time, tremendous issues
yeah,
with my
yeah.
blood family and all this kind of thing. And then I eventually slowly I broke away from that. I understood slowly by
Yes.
reading many different books and
Yeah,
watching documentaries and things like that. And I
yeah.
realized that it's a slow process because nature is slow. Nature is trying to be patient. So we have to be patient too, every step
We
along
have
our
to.
journey and
Yeah.
understand that these steps are necessary. We cannot jump in a cold water. You know, some people
So
do,
true.
of course, but
Yeah,
we
yeah,
stay on our path and we stay on our path and we're stronger on our path when we're going slowly on our journey.
yeah,
So with you and
yeah.
I, you of course have um, a longer.
I've been on the
You've been
journey longer.
doing this longer than I have,
Yeah,
like some 30, 40 years or
yeah,
something, right? So I mean,
yeah,
you have the experience and everything. I've been doing this for 12 years. I've been meditating even before that, and starting
yeah.
to become aware, like something within me just didn't want to consume animals and animal.
Mm,
Uh, People call animal foods, animal secretions, and things like that
yeah,
that come from
yeah,
sentient beings that really didn't want to die, they wanted to live,
yeah,
and
yeah.
we should not be stealing from anyone, all that kind of thing. So,
That's a
understanding
huge
all,
wake up call.
yeah,
There's a huge that the veganism really is in many ways key to. It's like that initial step because until you've done that, I think you can have an understanding of things, but you really even if you understand, you might have that understanding. Hang on a second, humans are being oppressed. But while you're still oppressing other beings, you have no right
exactly,
really to try and claim your own freedom. It's like you're saying, I
exactly,
want my freedom, but these beings, I want to keep oppressing them, and that's like a conflicting message for the universe.
exactly. And
So
people
that's
don't
why veganism
realize
is incredibly important.
it's so
Sorry.
important, exactly. And that's why a lot of people can't make that connection. They blame others, government, or the
Yeah.
way industry is, in the industrial practice of food production, for
Yeah.
example, and they'll blame them. But then they go into the stores and most of them would buy the same things
That's
that
right.
they're against,
Yes.
or like, oh, I don't like
Yeah.
government because I got to pay tax and all this kind of thing, and it while they do that, so they're
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
contradict,
Yeah.
so contradicting
Yeah.
themselves.
I
But
think.
I think also what is really important that we need to touch on is I talk about all of these ideas also in my book. So if anybody really wants to learn more, they can read my books or Mango's books as well. Um, and that is about, and I want to ask you the question also that when people go vegan, a lot of them also awaken, as you mentioned, to the deception of the governments and to the corruption of the different cities and towns and so forth. And but some of them are still stuck for 20, 30 years or 40 years eating cooked,
Mm,
burnt
mm,
fare, and they can't seem to get out of the mentality, and some of them even supporting, some of the vegans even supporting, and many even supporting
mm.
vaccinations, the COVID vaccinations, for example, all of this kind of thing. And I got to thinking after just observing and living my life that a lot of these people are not eating healthy. A lot of these people are eating high fat, fatty foods, fried
Mm,
foods, even vegan,
mhm,
processed foods, all this kind of thing. And I think a lot of times that is clouding their vision and their mind and their hearts, because I felt that every time I incorporated more fruit and vegetables into my, especially fruit into my life, I noticed that I started to think clear.
mm.
Maybe in certain aspects I'm still kind of slow or whatever, but I started to think more clear. I started to understand what's happening in the world, to see
Yeah.
through the deception of the governments. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, back to this whole thing again. That once you start making those changes, it can be, if you let it be, a snowball effect, so you can keep experiencing them more. I think at the beginning you just said that a lot of vegans wake up to the fact that the government isn't what we think it is, and the reality of the situation in the world. But I actually think majority of them don't. I think the
Mm,
majority of them don't, maybe because of the fact that their minds are still clouded, their thoughts are all foggy.
yeah,
So that hasn't happened yet. But if they, and a lot of people don't make changes, even if they do realize they don't make changes. And I think that
right,
boils down to addiction, because addiction is an incredibly strong thing, and it stops people making changes. It's like
yeah,
you might realize, at some level, you might think, okay, there is some truth to the fact that if I don't cook my food, it's going to be more healthy for me. But I really want to eat that stodge. I really want to have that vegan lasagna or whatever it might be.
yeah,
And people are incredibly addicted to it. So even though they have a realization, they don't break free from it because they don't want to, and that they don't want to because they want to keep being addicted. They want to keep feeding that addiction, and it's like, somebody who's smoking cigarettes. Ah, I'll give up. I know it's not good for me. I'll give up, but not today.
yeah,
And they never do give up unless
yeah,
something critical happens. They reach a healing crisis and they're really not given a choice. But people don't. Addiction is incredibly difficult to break, and
yeah,
that's where we need to work on ourselves, on our mind, and question, why is it okay for me to keep harming myself, even though I know I'm harming myself? Why is it
yeah,
okay for me to do that? And there isn't really a good answer to that. And I think it's incredibly important for whatever it might be in our lives that we're doing that's harming us or harming somebody else. We should be questioning that
yeah.
and
And some
trying to
people don't
eradicate
think,
it from our lives.
yeah, and some people
Yeah,
don't think that cooking or burning our food, because basically cooking so-called food is really burning our
yeah.
food, right?
It
So
is burning your food. Yeah,
some people don't think that what they're doing is harming. They think, oh, I'm not
yeah,
harming animals because I'm not eating animals,
yeah,
so that's or
yeah,
animal secretion, so that's okay.
yeah.
But the way I see it, because I can only tell talk about my own experience basically, and the way I
Mm,
see it is that there are different levels of consciousness and awakening or
mm,
awareness. And
yep,
when you go vegan, that's kind of like one awakening, especially if you do it for ethical, spiritual reasons, like really
yes,
connect to other beings and understand that I
yep,
don't want to use them for anything. I don't want to use them. I don't want
mm,
to take anything that comes from them. That's the first step. And then later on, starting to have an awakening about not burning our food, not cooking our so called natural food that is not natural anymore. And
yeah,
then that's another kind of awakening in a sense. And then another one is maybe with the government, corruption within the government. And then understanding that finally the next step is maybe like completely leaving society somehow without,
yeah,
getting,
yeah.
I don't know, getting
That's right.
in
That's right. There are
trouble.
many steps.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't have
So
to
I think,
take the steps one at a time. We just have to take whatever step that we can.
yeah,
I
we
think
just
the
flow.
only
We
one I
just flow
think that we
basically.
must kind of, sorry,
We just flow with life, and
flow.
once
Yeah.
we start
Yeah. Yeah.
to be more
Yeah.
conscious, then we start to realize, okay, I need to do this. I need to get rid of cooked food, or just in a feeling, like because for many
Yeah.
years
Yeah.
I've been eating so-called cooked foods, and I was just so addicted. Even though I read your books, and I read so many books about why it's so important to eat just fruit, and it took
Yeah.
me many years until that happened. So I think it really is some kind of like aha moment or awakening or some kind of awareness, and then you start gradually reducing. As some people, they
Mm.
gradually reduce salt and oil and things that are these things are not healthy, and of
Yeah.
course burn food and all that kind of thing. So I think it's
Yeah.
really about, for me, anyways, from how I did it, it's about
Yeah.
just being aware and understanding, do I really want that food? And then feel inside me, it just feels like, hello, Kreta, how are you? What do you have there? Some mangoes? Lovely.
Yeah, that's what you've got, Krita. Oh, yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
so really,
yeah,
just to sum up everything, Mango, what is the
yeah,
takeaway message of Topsy Turvy World? We want to again show the book cover to people.
yeah, yeah. It's
Topsy
it's the book.
Turvy World, Vegan Anarchy,
Yeah,
and they can buy that on your
Vegan Anarchy.
website. They can get it
Yeah,
on your website, yeah, on Common Sense. And you know what I really love too? I really love that terminology when you say, "I'm a brainwasher," and they're brain selling you. You know, I love that.
yes. That's yeah,
You
that's
know,
true.
and I keep using that. I keep using that word for other people, like brainwashing. Like I'm
Yeah,
brainwashing someone. Like like, oh, they're brainwashing somebody for using a mask. But like now I'm realizing, no, they're not brainwashing. They're brain selling.
the brain selling. Yes, very
Yeah.
true. Very true.
So there's a lot of
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
a lot of words and phrases now that we have to kind of change or improve. But I think
yeah,
there
yeah,
should be one day an Eden Fruitarian dictionary, so called.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
I was always thinking about that for many years, and I was also thinking about a recipe book, the
yeah,
something to do with raw vegan, but the lazy recipe book or something. So
yeah,
I'm coming up with these all crazy ideas, but
yeah,
I have like
yeah,
my
yeah,
latest book, Creating a Beautiful World, really touches on why it's so important to go vegan and the next
yeah,
steps go raw vegan and even Eden fruitarian. And the whole premise is really that Eden fruitarian is really the solution to all of the problems that we're facing. Maybe it's not they're not going to be solved right away overnight, but they can be solved. Um, within a matter of a few decades maybe if
yeah,
everybody or a lot of people embrace it. And so
yeah.
yeah. So what
Well,
else?
we as
What's
humans, we have the capacity to do many things. Humans can accomplish
yeah,
really whatever we collectively put our minds toward. So the idea of Eden Fruitarianism, a world that's fully at peace, is not
yeah.
some airy fairy idea that's impossible. It's not an impossibility. It's very much a possibility. It's just a question of attaining critical mass. Really, once enough people get on board with the idea, then
Mhm.
all things are possible. Really, no matter what the idea is, if enough people are behind it, we can
Yeah,
accomplish whatever we choose to. I really think
exactly,
that.
exactly. So
I think.
to sum up everything, what are the three main points, especially to your new book, that you want to sum up to give like a brief message to everybody, like a sum up message?
I well, I think I always make a big deal about veganism, understanding that if in order for ourselves to be and no longer be oppressed, we have to start by not oppressing others. So that is why really I make such a big deal about changing consumer habits and being more conscious and more aware of the effect that our own lives have on the rest of the world. So until we can do that, we don't really have any moral right to be saying, "Hang on a second, I don't want you to do that to me." If you're going to keep on doing similar things or worse to other beings, so I think that's a number one, to have that understanding. Number two is, as always, I think with my books I mentioned that understanding that what you put into your body, although it may appear at a certain level to be harmless, oftentimes it isn't. In fact, most cases, most people eat things which are harmful in many ways, either by cooking them or by the way that they've been produced, where they've wasted a whole field and grown one particular type of food, which is totally against nature. It goes totally against the
Exactly.
biodiversity, which is natural within the world. Normally, if you look at a plot of land that's just growing wild, you probably find hundreds of different types of plants growing there. But the farmers, they make it so there's only one thing grows over acres and acres of land. So understanding that we should be eating our food more naturally, not cooking our food, and thirdly, I suppose, just understanding that, really understanding that the world is is not as it should be, and trying to get that mindset where you just don't accept anything, don't take anything for granted. Everything that you've always thought was normal, you have to step away as if the planet doesn't exist, as if things aren't as they are, and questioning whether or not it sounds right to you. Because if we can put ourselves into a mindset um, where we kind of fully disregard everything that we've been taught. Imagine that you're living on a completely clean world, and you're the new people that are going to populate that earth or going to live on that planet. It makes sense that we want to live in fairness with each other and in true justice and treat each other in a nice way, not only ourselves but also the other beings that are living here. And that's exactly what we don't have now. There isn't fairness. There isn't fairness in the justice system. There isn't fairness within government. And the whole, basically, I would say that it can never be. You can never have a just dictator. There's no such thing. If somebody's dictating to you, then they're not just in the first place. So you cannot have a government which, on all levels, is completely free of corruption and completely
Right.
working for the will of the people. That's an impossibility. It's an impossibility.
Yeah, and one other question before I just pause you for a moment find
Yeah,
before we end this show,
sure.
because I want to end it early today. Is that a lot of people I've noticed? A lot of people are talking, or some people at least, are talking about how there are groups of people that are going to put Bill Gates and they're going to put all these, government people that are, Fauci and all these people behind bars, and this is the solution. Let's just bring on new politicians that will make things better. Do you ever think this system that we're living in currently with government structure is ever going to get better, even if the most noble person comes in so-called power? Do you think we're ever going to,
No,
or do we
it
need to really?
can't. Yeah, if you could theoretically imagine that there was such an enlightened person that could come along and say, okay, this is how we're doing things. Everybody lives for a finite time on the planet. So even if some theoretical situation somebody could be completely just and say, hang on a second, this compartment is doing something fishy and the books are being fiddled, and this isn't being done properly, and they could really kind of like steer things in the right way. It's only a question of time before that person is ousted anyway. Everybody's in term for only a short time. It's never going to happen. The idea of government is constitutionally corrupt, and there's nothing that can be done about that. Even though people think, oh, the original US Constitution was so good and it wanted the rights for everybody, it was always written by a group of people that kind of that were elitists, and they want power for themselves. And the fact that things can change so easily shows how inherently corruptible things always were, really. Because things, you know, we don't have we're no longer sovereign beings on this planet.
Yeah.
Well, we are. We're
So,
all sovereign beings, but the
we don't have
society wants us to
to.
think that we're not. Yeah,
Yeah. So we don't.
yeah.
But we basically cannot change the system to make it actually to make it like Eden paradise. There's no way to. I mean, some people will say, "Well, I vote because that's the only thing, and we got to try to do something." And they try to change the system, try to
Let
reform
me
the
say.
system somehow.
Let, I understand what you're saying, and it's the same with. Where I think I like to make this comparison that with animal welfare, people say, "Ah, okay, animal exploitation, it is bad, I acknowledge, but what we could do is tweak it and make it nicer, so that animals get to live a nicer life and with their family and get to go outside more and get more proper food to eat and kind of things." But these are welfare tweaks that acknowledgeably would benefit the animals in some way and make their lives less difficult than it is. But much in the same way, if we're going to make welfare changes to the whole system to make things nicer for us, the underlying problem is that nobody should be telling us how to live our lives. Nobody should be
Right,
telling us, Michael, you're not allowed to live in Ecuador. You've got to get back to Canada now. This is
right,
inhumane. Somebody can do that and say no. you're not allowed to. Why? You have as much right to be there as anybody else.
And by the way, we're all sovereign individual
Yeah,
earthlings, so nobody has the right to tell us
yeah,
where to be. But I'm in a place called
no,
Ecuador, and I love it so far. And
yeah,
I'm just going to read off something before we close this
yeah,
thing, and that is that Aurora and I right now we are creating something what is called Peaceful Village. It's going to be a raw vegan community, homestead
hmm,
community, probably the only one in all of the world that I know of that is completely raw vegan. That's going to be completely raw vegan. Um, we're going to, and let me just talk to you a little bit about it because you can find out the information if you want to learn more about Peaceful Village in Ecuador. We're creating it right now, the physical community. It's been slowly progressing to where it is now since 2014. So it's been taking a long time to get where I am today. I've had to do a lot of inner work. I had to do a lot of outer work as well to get to the point I am today, to find the perfect partner to work with, to create this magical place that people can themselves can uh, create something like that, something similar, by going to the forum, which is just forum dot, and I'll put all the links below, but forum dot peaceful-village.com. They can, this is a forum discussion board and things like that. They can learn about how they can join. So it's basically Peaceful Village, peaceful-village.com. And basically, we are a raw vegan community. Our main focus will be raw veganism, even though we're going to have a small little, I guess, a little building with some kind of cooked fare, but only for people to transition to a better way of living, to show them that it's possible to transition to live completely raw, and eventually our aim one day uh, is to be eaten fruitarian. Of course, we're not all there. We're all on different stages of our journey, but definitely it's completely forbidden to have anything that comes from animals on the land there. So any clothing of animals, any animal food, any so-called animal, I don't even like to call it food or products, but anything that comes from animals, their bodies or secretions, even the allowing of pets or sanctuaries is kind of forbidden. And I shouldn't say forbidden, but it's against our values, our core values. And so really we want to also try to specify growing things veganically or in a vegan permaculture way. So that's what we're going to be doing without any kind of animal inputs like blood meal, bone meal, manure, any animal manure. We'll be using our own excrement, our own urine, and also no harmful chemicals as well on the land. We're also anarchists at heart, so we're trying to move slowly away from society and trying to do that with everybody's help. Whoever wants to come and join a community like this, if it's through volunteering or through guest stays, and if they want to live permanently in a place like that, if we resonate, then yeah, come by. Also, we are striving to wanting to be 100% sustainable, so sustainable every which way. What we also talk about is the connecting more with nature, connecting more with each other, with other animals as well, naturally free roaming animals. So even though we'll have things like internet, we'll have electricity, we'll have electricity and internet will be limited somewhat, so we can connect more with nature and each other again. So but we're trying to be as self-sustainable as possible with our food and everything. So growing as much food as possible, getting people to help with that. That's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be focusing on that. And what I've noticed with a lot of communities out there is that that's not what they focus on really. I see many communities out there formed for many years and still are lacking the production of food that they need in order to be self-sustainable, completely
mm,
self-sustainable. Also, will have not just that. I've noticed a lot of communities, vegan or non-vegan, have don't have retreats, um, any all kinds of classes and events. I want everyone to learn. We want everyone to learn. If you cannot afford it, we want you to come and we want you to experience it. in whatever language you speak, we want you to experience it, to learn and to grow and possibly to contribute positive way to with your life, your lifestyle, your diet, food regime, and yeah, just the way you feel. We also help people heal with healing retreats and healing classes in all different types of ways. So that's another thing. And also within the community, um, members within the community, we will either not use money at all, or we'll use, instead of using the fiat system that is currently we're using in the system, is to use cryptocurrency, which is this kind of the second best, thing that we can do. So even though that's not the ideal, situation, we are trying to do as much things as we can freely with our hearts. Of course, to to operate, we need to have money coming in to operate to for upgrades and to for things like that. So guest stays, people that want to donate, fundraising, things like that. Some events will be free, some events will be paid, or whatever you can offer. But we definitely will not turn anyone away. Same thing with my books. If anybody wants to learn, I will send them a free book. I I really just want people to learn and people to be to understand what's going on and to join this peace movement, really what it is. And also the last thing is to our forum that we have, and we're going to get eventually the full website up and going. But the fourth thing, basically, or the last thing, is we teach others how to create their own peaceful village or a similar community. And so that's something that people are not really doing, what other communities are not really doing. And another thing that we also have to do and um, have to strive to work on and to bring people together to learn more about and to uh, have discussions about is how can we live as free human beings? How can we get back to that, to living free on the land without um, police kicking us off the land, without them deporting us back to our so-called countries? How do we do all of this? And so this is what we are transitioning and slowly learning about. And all of this stuff, even after many years of learning about it and everything, all of this is new to me. So I'm in the process of learning about this, creating this community. I by no means am an expert in any of this stuff. I teach people uh, about all the things that I know, all the things that I've learned in the past 12 years of being vegan, and how can we get to this Eden world? And that's what Peaceful Village is really about. So once again, Mango, I want to thank you so much for being here. Your website is fruitnut.net.
That's correct.
If you want to check out all the links, all the pages that I mentioned, it will be linked down below in the YouTube description, as well as the BitChute description and Facebook as well. So I'll be posting that as well, um, within the next week or a few weeks in some time. And any last words you have, Mango, for people that will
No,
watch this on
I thank you very much for the work that you're doing. I think it's a wonderful idea, the project of yours, Peaceful Village. It's yeah, surely going to help towards creating a better world. So
Yeah,
thank you very
exactly.
much for that.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
And I'd
And
like to say the same also. If anybody wants to read any of my books, just ask me and I'll send the PDFs to anybody who's interested.
thank you so
Happy
much,
to give
Mango.
away.
Thank you so much, Mango, again for what you do and being on this webinar. I tried to keep this as short as possible, but I know there's so much to cover that it can go on for hours and days just talking
Yeah.
about all of this. But definitely we will keep you posted when this video is going to be uploaded. It should upload, I think, automatically to YouTube if I'm not mistaken. And then I'll edit the description and everything to include all the links and everything in there.
Hmm.
If anybody again wants information about myself or Mango, fruitnut.net and weareinterconnected.com is where you can find my books. and information about myself. And peaceful hyphen or dash village.com. Again, I created that name many years ago. Now I don't know, maybe village is not the right word, but we want to create a peaceful world anyways, where no one is harmed, everyone is living free, and where we just live in harmony with all of life and help one another to do the best that we can to feed ourselves, clothe ourselves, or rather unclothe ourselves, and
Mm,
to eat as much delicious, nutritious fruit as possible. So again, once
mm,
again, thank you so much, Mango,
thank you.
for being here, and we will talk in a future video. Take care, Mango. Thank
Yep.
you.
You take care too. Bye.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for coming to Peaceful Village.